Welcome to the Thyroid Fixer podcast, where we dive deep into the world of thyroid and hormones, especially for you ladies navigating perimenopause and menopause, and really for anyone struggling with hypothyroidism. I'm your host, Dr. Amy, thyroid and hormone specialist and CEO of a global telemedicine practice where we prescribe the right thyroid treatment and bioidentical hormones to all 50 states and most of Canada, helping you become that badass human that you're meant to be. So if you're battling weight gain and hair loss, you can't lose weight no matter what you do, your energy levels are plummeting and your libido left town, then you're in the right place and you have found your tribe. Remember, I want you to embrace every inch of that badass woman that you truly are. So if you're ready to dive in and fix things, let's get started. So did you ever try talking to a man about your health issues and how'd that go for you? They just don't get it. But that's not the case with my friend Cash. Cash actually found it so frustrating that there was not enough research on women's health compared to men's health. So he changed that with his company. He completed thousands of studies on women, which included genetic testing, where these women learn the ins and outs of their personal DNA. And then they took that genetic blueprint and they found personalized solutions for themselves. So that gave them so much relief. I mean, imagine knowing exactly which genes in your body influence your hormonal fluctuations, and then understanding how you can optimize your thyroid so you no longer have to be reactive to all the toxins in our environment. So I am partnering with Kashif Khan Wednesday, October 9th for a free live webinar. He is going to reveal how genetic testing can fix your thyroid problems through the power of your unique DNA. So if you're sick of all the symptoms, the brain fog, the weight, all of that, then gather this piece of information and apply it to you. It's free. So sign up at hackmydna.com/Amy. So that's hackmydna.com/AMIE. That way you can register and you can join us live. It's going to be an amazing free masterclass. So you can dive more into how your genetics and your DNA affect your entire body, including your thyroid and your hormones. I made Hormone Fixer for you to get more of that GSD hormone. You want adequate levels of testosterone in order to have motivation, in order to burn fat, in order to build sexy, lean muscle that is not only going to make you better at burning fat every single day, it's also going to protect you. It's going to protect you as you age. It's going to protect your bones. You want sexy, lean muscle in order to have a metabolism. So get some Hormone Fixer, start taking it, and just enjoy the benefits. What we have been hearing from the community of people taking it, improved energy, improved strength. They're seeing their muscles pop out and look amazing when they're working out. They're getting that pump. They're having a libido. They actually want to have sex again. You cannot go wrong with Hormone Fixer. It increases your growth hormone. It increases your testosterone. The cis quadrangulus, and it helps your bones. The Tonkat Ali helps keep your sex hormone binding globulin low, which we want that as well. So it's not bound up to our thyroid hormones and testosterone. Try the Hormone Fixer. Trust me, it's going to change your world. So here's something we haven't talked about on the podcast yet, and I can't believe it. With 460 episodes, how have we not talked about leptin? Well, in order to talk about leptin, we kind of have to lay the groundwork for what it is and how it works in the body. So you probably have heard of leptin resistance. You may have heard of leptin resistance. You've definitely heard of insulin resistance. And we know that insulin is a signaling hormone released by the pancreas in response to the food that we eat. And how we define insulin resistance is actually when you have an elevated insulin number. So I like insulin to be below a 6. If fasting insulin is below a 6, or you can even look at hemoglobin A1C. We've gone over this before as well. Hemoglobin A1C, I want to see between a 4.8 and a 5.2. And this is a 3-month snapshot of what your body has been doing to your glucose. So if that's above a 5.2, you are insulin resistant, or another word for insulin resistance is pre-diabetes. You're insulin resistant, pre-diabetic. Now, if you have insulin resistance, you probably have leptin resistance too. So leptin resistance is seen when leptin levels in the blood are above a 10. So insulin, we want below a 6. Leptin, we want below a 10. And when leptin is high, that means that there is resistance at the cellular level to the uptake of leptin. So let's go all the way back. I'm going to leave you there, just kind of hanging. I'm leaving that carrot hanging. And we're going to get into what leptin actually is. So leptin is also a hormone, and it is made by our fat cells. I mean, side note, did you know how many hormones are made by our fat? So fat is not just gushy, squishy stuff that we grab and want off our bodies. Fat is an organ. Fat produces hormones. It has mitochondria in it. Fat is always working and signaling our body in one way or another. So too much fat can signal our body to be inflamed. It can actually cause insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. Excess fat can actually cause leptin resistance as well. So leptin is a hormone that is made by your fat cells, and the purpose of it is to keep your food intake in check. So that food noise that you're hearing over and over again, you're always hungry, you don't understand, you're eating the protein because protein is satiating, but you're still hungry. That is one sign of leptin resistance. Now, you don't have to have insatiable hunger to have leptin resistance, but that is one sign of leptin resistance, because leptin is controlling your food intake and it's controlling your weight, and it's helping to balance out your weight. So it's giving you the signals, hey, your weight is too low. You're in this starvation mode. Ding, 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 Sally, you need to eat more. So leptin, also called the satiety hormone, leptin will go down in order to trigger that hunger in your body. Now, stay with me, because you're probably sitting there going, well, wait a minute. You just said if leptin is high, I'm leptin resistant, and that's going to create hunger. Yes. Remember that leptin is a hormone. We don't want it too high. We don't want it too low. So while we do want leptin below a 10, when I see a patient come in with a leptin level of a 1, I think, you know what? How many calories are you eating? Are you underweight? Are you starving yourself? Are you over dieting and over exercising? Because that is a sign that your body is dropping leptin to make you less satiated so that you will eat more and get your body out of this starvation mode. So if you are too thin, if you have lost too much weight, if you have used and abused the GLPs instead of using them the proper way, which we are going to tie that in the leptin resistance too, so hang tight. If you've used and abused the GLPs and you've lost all your muscle, and now you're just walking around just sticks and bones and no ass, then you might have lower leptin levels because your body is trying to get you to go eat, go find a fridge. Most of us are not in that space. We're in the leptin resistant space where, yeah, there's the food noise, there's the more hungry than usual. You know how you feel after you don't get a good night's sleep, right? Something happened, you were up, you got 5 hours. You're like, I could eat everything in sight today. I call the seafood diet. Anything that I see, I want to eat, I want to consume. That same irrational hunger is present in those with leptin resistance. Not everybody, but some. So when leptin is released from the fat cells, it's actually giving a signal to your brain to regulate your hunger by providing the sensation of feeling full. So you eat, leptin is released by the fat cells, gives a signal, because remember, all hormones are signaling messengers, gives a signal back to the brain that says, you can tell this body to stop eating. We're good. We have enough fuel. We have enough calories. We have enough nutrients to run this show. They can stop putting food into their mouth now. And when everything is working properly, you get that normal sensation of fullness. that you can push your plate away. You're like, I'm good. But when that signaling is off, you just keep eating and you keep eating, you keep eating. And after that steak and that beautiful sweet potato, you want some chocolate and some ice cream and maybe topping it off with a pizza. Now that may seem extreme, but it's real. It is real. And that hunger and that I don't want to call it air hunger, but that food noise is absolutely real in so many of you. So leptin resistance then occurs when the brain is just constantly stimulated by leptin. So fat is releasing leptin. Leptin is signaling the brain. And it's almost like the brain is just overstimulated. And this is causing, when the brain gets overstimulated by leptin or is constantly stimulated, this causes a dysregulation in the feedback system, so that's when you're feeling hungry and you eat more, even though your belly is full, your stomach is full, and you have enough fat stores on your body for your body to pull from in need of energy. So let's say, hey, it's time to run away from the tiger. It's time to go into your 8 hours of workday and you're back to back with meetings. You need fuel. The body needs fuel. The body needs fuel to run away from the tiger. Brain needs fuel to get through your 8-hour workday with a bunch of meetings. Even if you didn't eat, your body can tap into the fat that we all have in order to get energy for fuel. So technically, even when the brain is signaling, oh my gosh, you need to eat more, and you're like, why the hell am I so hungry? If you stopped eating, you wouldn't die. And that's why we can fast for long periods of time, because there's enough fat on our bodies for our body to use for fuel on a day-to-day basis. And that's why we don't die if we don't eat for 7 days. It's all good. Leptin resistance actually comes back and alters your metabolism. And here's the problem. When you are doing all the things and you still have leptin resistance and you still have that food noise and you're eating more than you should be, that's going to add up to be a problem. This is a situation of 1 + 1 = 5, because those two scenarios of being leptin resistant, eating more than you really should or that you even need, and the effect that leptin resistance has on the metabolism and the thyroid, I'll get to that in a moment, can really 10x your weight gain and 10x your inability to lose weight. So we can see how everything is at play here. So it alters the metabolism so that you actually conserve fuel and you burn fewer calories for energy. And that is how leptin resistance can contribute to weight gain and obesity over time. Can also be associated with cardiometabolic disease. It could be associated with type 2 diabetes, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So it's a problem. It's a problem that we need to pay attention to. And yes, I'm sorry that it took 450 some odd episodes to get you this information. I stood back and went, wait a minute. We haven't talked about leptin. We have not talked about leptin. How have we not talked about leptin? And honestly, the reason why I haven't is because we really could do this in a 5-minute podcast. I'm going down the rabbit hole and giving you all the information. But to summarize leptin, and I'll summarize it again at the end, if you have hypothyroidism and if you have insulin resistance, you have leptin resistance. So half the time I don't even test leptin. It's a more expensive test. My patients in Canada have to order it privately. Now, if you really want to know, you can always go to Ulta Labs and grab your own leptin. It's cheap on there, but for us to add it to a panel, it jacks up the price. Like, you know what? Just leave it off. I know if somebody's leptin resistant. 99.9% of my patients are leptin resistant, because 99.9% of my patients have hypothyroidism, and 99.9% of my patients have insulin resistance. So they probably have leptin resistance. And here's the other thing. Is I'm going to jump to right now in giving you the treatment for leptin resistance is T3. So actually correcting your hypothyroidism the right way, because we know T4 only doesn't work. Lowering reverse T3, because leptin is a huge contributor to increasing reverse T3. So proper thyroid hormone replacement involving T3, which will lower reverse T3 and actually affect leptin directly, helps with leptin resistance. Berberine, blood sugar fixer that you're already taking for insulin resistance, helps with leptin resistance. Losing weight. So what are we doing? Why are we fixing your thyroid? Losing weight will help with leptin resistance. And the GLPs. So I've talked about microdosing GLPs. If you haven't listened to that podcast, we'll put it in the show notes. We'll link to it. It's only a few back. You can go back and listen to microdosing GLPs. Microdosing GLPs using the semaglutide and tirzepatide in the proper way at the proper dose, so you don't lose your ass and you don't lose your muscle and you don't look like Skeletor. Using it in the proper way so we can have an effect on your metabolism and you can lose weight, but you're losing body fat instead of muscle. Using those in the proper way helps with leptin resistance as well. There is no leptin resistance supplement, by the way, outside of berberine. There is no leptin resistant supplement. There's nothing out there that directly works on leptin, except T3, the GLPs, and berberine. So you're kind of already doing all of the things. This is really why I haven't dove deep into leptin, because I know you are all doing things to treat it. And if you're not, then it's time to get freaking serious about your thyroid. And it's time to get really serious about that excess weight that you're carrying around. And if you are insulin resistant, it's time to get serious about that as well, because insulin resistance is your fast track to aging and death. Insulin resistance, we know, increases your risk of Alzheimer's. Insulin resistance is basically stepping your toe into the waters of type 2 diabetes, where you move into type 2 diabetes. Now you are a metabolic inflamed mess inside. And many, many systems have gone wrong once you are full-blown type 2 diabetic. It's time to get serious about that and get that excess fat off your body. I know you're trying. I know I'm preaching to the choir, right? Get the excess fat off your body. Figure out how to do it. If your thyroid is jacked, you better be working with somebody to get that optimized. You better be taking berberine or blood sugar fixer. If you are insulin resistant, you better be controlling your carbohydrates, get the seed oils out of your diet. Stop with the sugar and the processed foods, needless to say, but it's worth saying anyways. Get good sleep, because sleep is your key to fat loss, is getting quality sleep. And then, yes, then you can step back and say, if you still can't lose the weight, you're doing all the things, enter microdosing of GLPs, because that also reduces inflammation. That helps if you are insulin resistant, obviously, and it's going to help with leptin resistance as well. It's all tied together. It's all just so beautifully tied together. That might have sounded like a montage of words. I'm just vomiting words out at you, but it's not. If you go back, play that again, or re-listen to this episode again, it is so beautifully interconnected and tied together so that you can go through and go, okay, well, wait, I am working on my thyroid. I am on T3. I'm not on T4 only. I am taking berberine. I am watching my diet. I'm tracking my food. I'm tracking my macros. I know how much I take in. So maybe this is just that last piece that I need to take care of. It's possible. All right, back into leptin. So leptin is obviously tied to excess body weight. It's tied to obesity and metabolic dysfunction. And right now we're at 1.9 billion adults are overweight, and 650 million are just flat out considered obese. So there's different criteria between being overweight, meaning to lose body fat, and being full-blown obese or having obesity. 650 million. And that's not even counting our kids. And again, I mean, go to Walmart, just sit there and observe, go to Disneyland, Disney World, any amusement park, any Walmart, any mall, and just sit there. Give me 20 minutes to just sit there. And I want you to count the number of fit people. Now, I'm not talking just there, oh, well, she's 20 and she's skinny. It has to be fit. So if you're looking at, let's say 30, 40, 50, 60-year-old, they have to be, lean but muscular, not a skinny fat. They have to look like they take care of themselves. They're not carrying around a boatload of excess weight. And I mean, check out the kids and the teenagers too, and count the fit people. You're not going to get many. It's going to be an easy count. You're not going to need more than both of your hands. That's for sure. You don't even have to bring along a pen and paper. We are in a society of severe obesity, severe insulin resistance, leptin resistance, thyroid problems, everything that comes along with being obese. Heart disease, type 2 diabetes, increased risk of cancer, increased rates of cancer, increased rates of Alzheimer's, all diseases of aging are increasing exponentially. We'll sit back and look at our world, look at society, look at people walking around. It's just a really horrible crisis that we're in that we need to find a way out of. Okay, that was my soapbox PSA for the day. So studies show that elevated leptin and the accompanying resistance to a reduction in body mass are really the two characteristics of obesity. What is obesity? Carrying around excess body mass. And when you carry around excess body mass, you can't not be insulin resistant. Double negative there. You're going to be insulin resistant when you carry around excess body fat. Those two just go hand in hand. Now, excess body fat or being obese doesn't automatically equate to hypothyroidism. No. But excess body fat and being obese does equate to an increased risk of all disease states and increased inflammation. Now, there are other hormones that are balanced out with leptin. They kind of play with leptin. You may have heard of a hormone called ghrelin. So the way to remember these two hormones, leptin and ghrelin, they go together. Ghrelin, growling, hunger. So ghrelin is the hunger hormone. And you're like, well, wait a minute. I thought you just said that leptin resistance makes us more hungry. Right. Leptin resistance. Your cells are resistant to the satiety hormone. Ghrelin is being pumped out. Leptin is being pumped out, but it can't get to where it needs to go. So just like insulin resistance, there's excess insulin in the body. Insulin is needed. Insulin is a vital hormone. We don't want to demonize insulin. Insulin helps push glucose and other nutrients into the cell to be used for fuel. If you have excess insulin because your cells are resistant to insulin doing its job and pushing that glucose and other nutrients in, then you have excess insulin in the blood. And insulin is also, not only is it the life-giving hormone, it is the fat storage hormone. Leptin, when leptin is released and the cells are resistant to leptin doing its job to give you that signal of being satiated, of being full, then if it's resistant, you're always hungry, or you're more hungry than usual. These signals are really important, and we tend to almost push it aside and make it, not a big deal. What are these hunger signals? What? You might not even be aware that you're eating more than you should be, that you really have an abnormal appetite. Honestly, for myself, and I did not say this in the microdosing peptides episode, but I'll say it here. When I started microdosing the peptides, microdosing the GLP, specifically tirzepatide, what I noticed is that my hunger is not crushed. So when you go back and listen to that episode, you'll hear me talk about the use of a normal dose, a clinical dose that you would get from your doctor, the clinical dose that Eli Lilly is pushing for Mounjaro. That clinical dose destroyed my appetite. I mean, it was gone. There was no way in hell that I could even remotely eat the amount of calories in a day that I need to eat, even to keep my muscle on. So that's not a healthy appetite reduction. In the microdosing, there is no appetite destroying. I can eat normally. I can eat a full steak. I can eat a full meal. I can eat 3 meals a day. I can add in a shake. I can eat however much I want to eat. And I don't get this weird feeling of being full after taking 2 bites of steak. That's on the higher dose. On the microdose, when you find your sweet spot microdose, it is working on your metabolism. And it is, I want to say, like 1/10 working on your hunger, but in a good way. Hang with me here. I don't want you to just shut me out and go, well, nope, I need more hunger. I need more hunger control than that because my food cravings are off the charts and the food noise is killing me every single day. If you have food noise going on, you have insulin resistance, hypothyroidism, and most likely leptin resistance too. If you really are aware of the food noise. But if you're like, no, I don't think I overeat. I don't really think I do. Microdose of GLP. And then you really get in tune with what your true appetite is. So what I have noticed with microdosing the GLPs is I'm not crazy hungry through the day like I was. I'm more in control, but I get in the right amount of protein. I get in all of the calories that I need. I thoroughly enjoy my food, but yet, yeah, I step back and I go, wow, before the microdosing of the GLPs, we're gonna push away the macro dosing where I lost my appetite. Set that aside. I'm checking in with you. How's your energy these days? How's your skin? How's your muscle strength? These are things that are very, very important to me. And I know just from research that after the age of 30, our mitochondria starts breaking down. And these are the powerhouses of the cell that provide us with muscle strength and better skin and abundant energy through the day. So I've added in something that I wanted to share with you, Timeline Nutrition's MitoPure. So when we look into research into healthy aging, it really focuses on that pivotal role that our mitochondria plays in our body. And without our mitochondria working at top notch, then health is just declining. And that's not what we want. Daily wear and tear on a mitochondria is inescapable, but we can do something about it now. Timeline Nutrition's MitoPure is the first supplement that has been clinically shown to replace and rebuild damaged mitochondria. And this results in a boost in cellular energy. And actually, research has shown that individuals experience an increase in muscle strength and endurance without even altering their diet and exercise routine. So, I mean, I can personally attest to feeling the difference. I am now going to ask you to feel the difference. So I invite you to go to timelinenutrition.com. They're giving my community 10% off of MitoPure if you use the code Dr. Amy. So you are going to go to timelinenutrition.com/Dr. Amy and use the code Dr. Amy, DRAMIE. So timelinenutrition.com/DRAMIE and use the code Dr. Amy at checkout. Before the microdosing of the GLPs, yeah, I would fluctuate in my hunger. There would be days where, with or without good sleep, I was on the seafood diet. I saw food, I ate it. I would go up to my kitchen in between every interview, every meeting, and grab something. But with the microdosing, I mean, I can easily, I can be here recording, interviewing, doing meetings 4 or 5 hours. And I'm like, I should probably go get something. And I should probably throw in a shake, get my protein intake up. But it's like a calming of the food hunger screaming that goes on in your head. It just is. So these GLPs, microdosing them, doing them the proper way, absolutely is an answer to leptin resistance. So we know that leptin is a hormone produced in the fat cells. We said that. Keeping food intake and weight balanced, absolutely. We also have to remember that there are other functions of leptin. So when we have abundant energy, when we have a boatload of fat stores, basically, i.e. energy, not energy to get through the day, you have energy stores on your body, and that is fat. That excess fat actually produces more leptin. And you would be like, well, that makes sense. Because if I'm overweight, I want production of leptin to occur so that it tells my brain to stop freaking eating. But the problem is that excess leptin being produced by the fat cells is causing a leptin resistant state. There's only so much leptin to go around to attach to the receptor sites to do its job. When it's overproduced, just like insulin, you have this excess leptin floating around and it can't do its job. It can't do its job. When functioning properly, then the leptin signaling system actually contributes to helping your brain know how much energy you have stored as fat, how much food you should consume, how much food you should consume. And it helps you balance everything. It helps your body tap into your fat stores for fuel instead of using just what you eat for fuel all the time. Now, as we are working on this, let's say we're using T3, we're using berberine, we're using the GLPs. As your body fat decreases, that is how you are going to decrease your levels of leptin and get out of that leptin resistant state. So as those levels of leptin decrease, it's telling your body that everything is okay now. It's balanced. You don't have to tell this person that they're starving and they need to go eat. Things are just kind of chill. Things are just chill. And if your body fat drops too low, and again, this probably isn't you listening to this, but if your body fat drops too low and your leptin is rolling back in at like a 1 or a 2, just know that a stimulation and hunger and an increased appetite means everything is working because you're not eating enough and your body and your brain and your hormones and your leptin are actually doing what they should do. Those low levels of leptin are signaling the brain to produce more ghrelin to make you hungry so that you go eat and get yourself out of that starvation mode. Like I said, it's not common if you're listening to this, but you never know. My audience is very astute. They like to take in as much information as possible. And with this being the first leptin episode, it might be you. You might be there saying, well, I tested my leptin once and Dr. Amy called me out on possibly not eating enough or over exercising. So I really needed to get that in check, track my food, make sure I was taking in enough protein, enough calories. Okay, that was a side note. Now, leptin does more than just control your fat. It's also related to bone health, immunity, reproduction, and brain function. So leptin actually helps modulate. We have these innate and adaptive immune functions as it relates to inflammation. We produce things like tumor necrosis factor, BDNF1, brain-derived neurotropic factor. There's an interleukin-6, which is an inflammatory marker. All of those inflammatory components, inflammatory markers are closely tied to leptin and closely tied to the immune system because our immune system will react and respond to any invader, even just basic inflammation or viruses or bacteria, any kind of inflammation in our body, our immune system reacts and responds to, from our innate immune system built into us and our adaptive immune system that we get from regularly being exposed to viruses, which is why when we were back in the COVID days and people were wearing masks, everybody was screaming, just use your adaptive immune system. It's called herd immunity. It works. It works. So herd immunity is also adaptive immune functions. Your body will adapt to what it is being exposed to and will not overreact because it's like you've been in this sterile bubble forever using hand sanitizer everywhere you go and wearing a mask. You're not going to have an immune system. Leptin actually plays with the immune system. So leptin produced from fat cells, we can actually see it causing changes in bone, and that's going to affect joint health. And that can be associated with conditions like osteoarthritis or rheumatoid arthritis. Now, I just said leptin plays a role in the immune system. What is RA? Autoimmunity. Hashimoto's, autoimmunity. Now, when we're talking about the brain, again, this so beautifully ties back to the GLPs that we know that the GLPs, tirzepatide, semaglutide, microdosed, actually helps us produce serotonin. And we've been showing increased mood, more balanced mood, in addition to the increased satiety. And like I just shared, there's that more control over your hunger, almost from like a brain to stomach communication perspective. There's just more control. Well, leptin, when you are leptin resistant, like we said, it triggers the brain. It has a feedback system to the brain. So higher levels of leptin are actually associated with lower mood as well, because that leptin is flooding flooding all the signaling in the brain, all the receptor sites in the brain, they're being flooded. So when those receptor sites are flooded and that lack of satiety and decreased metabolism occurs, that can actually interfere with serotonin and dopamine production. And then what does that do from a psychological perspective? When we are lower in energy, we're depressed, we're lethargic, we're looking at the world through black color glasses, we're going to eat more. We move into screw it syndrome really quickly. And we go, well, screw this. My life sucks. Nothing's working. So I'll take the pizza, not the gluten-free one. That's just what we do. As human beings, that's what we do when we are depressed. Many of us do use food for comfort as well. So you get back into that overeating, not moving. It's just a bad cycle that occurs from this leptin resistance. So one study was done on rats. This is kind of interesting. They somehow removed the rats' leptin signaling. I don't know how you remove leptin since it's produced in the fat cells, but these lab guys figure it out. So they removed the poor rats' leptin signaling. It's amazing. The rats wouldn't leave their food trough. They wouldn't even move. They were in energy conservation mode, constantly hungry, always eating. And they literally ate until their bodies were damn near exploding from being so fat. They wouldn't move. So again, when we go back to how does this signal the brain? How does this affect our mood? When we're depressed, we don't want to do anything. We want to sit on the couch, watch Netflix, and pop some popcorn and order a pizza and top it off with ice cream. So again, it's just crazy when we think about there's the biological signaling to the brain, but then there's the psychological part that really none of us are immune to. That when we are depressed, we just tend to not want to do, and we don't want to move, and we don't want to take a walk, and we don't want to go to the gym, and we don't want to socialize. We just want to hibernate and eat comfort food. So again, this is just building upon itself. What else do we need to know about leptin? Well, it can start affecting our triglycerides. It can start affecting our cholesterol panels, our lipid panels. We won't go down that rabbit hole because really, yes, we have to say, at what point do we actually worry about our triglycerides and our lipid panel? You can go back and listen to the podcast I did with Dr. Jack Wolfson, America's Heart Doctor, because he gets into that and where our cholesterol numbers should be and why we shouldn't be pushing them down. But we just don't want that excess inflammation going on. We don't want it bombarding our liver. We don't want it pushing up our triglycerides. We don't want it causing leaky gut. So here's another tie to Hashimoto's. We know that with all autoimmune conditions and with the immune system, the three-legged stool. So on one leg of this autoimmune stool, we'll call it the Hashimoto's stool. The one leg, you have that genetic predisposition. Your mom, your grandma, your aunt, your sister had it. Some kind of autoimmunity. It doesn't even have to be Hashimoto's. The other leg of the stool, we have leaky gut. And the other leg of the stool, the third leg, we have a trigger. That's going to be your hormonal fluctuations. Think thyropause. The definition of thyropause is when your thyroid shits the bed after the age of 40 because of fluctuating hormones. But that leaky gut, well, leptin actually triggers leaky gut. Why? Because of that unmanaged stress and those cravings for high sugar, high carbohydrates, processed food triggers leaky gut. That causes systemic inflammation. That will turn on that Hashimoto's switch or any other autoimmune switch, from Crohn's to celiac to rheumatoid arthritis. We already saw that correlation with leptin and RA. And then, of course, if it does nothing else, it creates a boatload of inflammation when you eat that way and when you have leaky gut. So the symptoms of leptin resistance, if you haven't garnered them yet from our discussion: increased appetite, constantly feeling hungry, increased food intake despite having adequate energy stores, or excess amounts of body fat. If you have excess amounts of body fat, you shouldn't be hungry. If you're hungry and you have excess body fat, you're leptin resistant. Storing calories taken in as fat instead of burning them as energy, and overall weight loss resistance and difficulty keeping the weight off. Now, you see how this can easily tie back to hypothyroidism as well. Yes, all of those symptoms tie back to hypothyroidism. That's why not having your thyroid optimized contributes to leptin resistance. These all tie back to insulin resistance, which is why I said in the beginning that I really don't even test leptin, because if you're insulin resistant, you're leptin resistant as well. Obviously, overlapping symptoms of leptin resistance and insulin resistance. Now, again, what do you do? How do you address it? I will repeat T3, keeping your inflammation down, removing the high carbohydrate and high sugar foods, removing all refined sugars, removing all of the hateful eight and what did Kate Shanahan call the seed oils? The sinister six, maybe? Removing all seed oils, removing all processed foods, removing all refined sugars, focusing on protein, focusing on what we call brain cell fertilizers, like really good healthy fats. These are your olive oil and ghee and avocados and avocado oil. Any omega-3 fatty acids are beautiful for reducing inflammation and giving your body that brain cell fertilizer. Fish, salmon, sardines, flax seeds, walnuts, amazing for high quality omega-3s and for keeping you more satiated, because the protein and the fat are going to work together to really help you feel more full as you're getting your leptin resistance under control. Gluten-free diet. We tell you to do that anyways with autoimmunity. And I really don't know any person that should be eating gluten. Like, it's not like there's this category of, well, you're autoimmune and you should be gluten-free. That is true. But there's no category of, well, these are the people that can eat gluten. There's nobody in that category, by the way. You're not in that category as much as you want to convince yourself that you are. So a gluten-free diet can also improve many aspects of leptin resistance. Balancing your blood sugar, taking in berberine, that helps as well. Now, fasting, time-restricted eating and fasting can help, because again, you're narrowing that eating window to where you have more, we'll say, bookended control. So yeah, that eating window, you might be going crazy during that eating window. And that is where the T3, the GLPs, and the berberine all come in to calm that food noise. But if you reduce your eating window, I mean, you're not eating 12 and 14 hours in a day where you can really consume a boatload of calories in those 12 and 14 hours. Let's say you narrow it to like a 6 to 8 hour eating window. Now, obviously, you have a little bit more control, even as you're battling that increased hunger. Fasting can help reduce inflammation too, and it can help reset leptin receptors. So that is going to be helpful as well. We just want to find that sweet spot so that we don't fast so much that we're not getting in our protein. And then balancing your microbiome, getting in enough sleep, moving, exercising, even if you don't want to exercise. You have to go move, even if it's just taking a walk. But ultimately, I would want you lifting heavy shit, so that you can build upon your muscle structure and we can change your body composition. Because as you build more muscle, and muscle is metabolically active, it's naturally going to give you an increased metabolism. Adding in T2. So thyroid fixer, metabolism fixer. This is not an episode for a shameless plug of thyroid fixer, but T2 increases your basal metabolic rate and helps with insulin resistance. So if you're increasing your basal metabolic rate and you're lifting heavy shit to increase your muscle, that's going to increase your metabolic rate. So those two things are going to work together. You add in some berberine to balance out the blood sugar and your insulin. Maybe you go all the way to doing the microdosing and the GLPs. Now you have a stack to really attack this leptin resistance and get the body fat off your body that is not healthy in any way, shape, or form. Any way, shape, or form. And then finally, managing your stress. So what's one of the biggest causes of inflammation outside of lack of sleep? Lack of sleep is just such a cornerstone for controlling inflammation in your body. But the other one is stress. I have patients that come in, their insulin will be coming back at an 18 and their A1C went up to like a 5.6. They're borderline diabetic. I'm like, I don't understand. I'm doing carnivore. I'm taking in 20 grams of carbohydrates a day. What the hell's happening? So I ask them about their stress. And this always cracks me up in a not great way. I feel bad for them, but this is where it all comes out. Well, actually, my mother-in-law moved into our house. My husband just lost his job. My child was struggling at school. My child was diagnosed with a disease. I mean, it just these major stressors that you go, well, hello, that's the cause. It's not what you're putting in your mouth. It's not what you're doing or not doing. It's this uncontrolled stress that you don't have control over. It's in that uncontrolled category. We can control how we respond to stress or how we react to it. I don't know what the psychological term would be. We can control how we react to a stressful situation to a point. There still is that cascade, and this is going to take a lot of like monk meditation. And listen, I'm sure there's a lot of you out there, and I tip my hat to you and I give you all the kudos in the world that you're like, no, I got this. I've taken enough neuro-linguistic programming and mindset courses to know when I can throw in my breath work and my meditation to control my stress response in any situation. Freaking awesome. If you could send me like the cliff notes of what you do, that would be amazing. But I have done the breath work and done the meditation and done the neuro-linguistic programming and done the mindset. And I still can't control my stress response inside of my body with every single situation. Example, last night, my poor dog jumps off the bed and goes to the floor. He never does that. He sleeps on the bed. Like, what gives? Okay, what's going on? Maybe it's his stomach. I was hoping that his stomach didn't flip. He doesn't have like bloat. It's 11 o'clock at night. Obviously, the vet's not there. We have to go to the emergency vet. He's got a little bit of the shakes. And I have, because my dog has been with me for 14 years, longer than any relationship I've ever been in. I have a great deal of love for my dog, just like a child. So I had a panic attack, full blown, sweating, heart racing, literally had to do a box breath to try to just control my heart rate. Because I thought, oh, great, now I'm going to drop over of a heart attack. Because really, that's panic attacks. If you don't know what they are, you think that you're dying. I knew what it was. So I knew I wasn't dying, but I knew my heart rate wasn't exactly in a healthy zone at that point in time. I did not have control over that stress response that my body had. Why am I telling you this? To give you a little bit of leeway. So yes, stress does play a huge role in diabetes and increased glucose, increased A1C, increased insulin, increased leptin. And we have to manage it as much as we possibly can. Now, many of you ladies moving into perimenopause and menopause will realize that your give a fucks really kind of go away once you hit 50. So you don't worry about as many things as you once did. But there might be those few things that really get you going, that really get the worry feeling, it kicks it up, and here comes the panic attack. I want you to give yourself a little bit of leeway here and don't think that you have to control every stress in your life, because you can't. Control what you can control. React the best way, respond to stress in the best way that you know possible, and then give yourself some grace. Because you know what? There's a boatload of other things that we went over in this episode that you can look at and you can control and you can have an effect over. So, summary, leptin, get your thyroid under control. Make sure you add in some T3. You better not be on T4 only. Leptin resistance is going to increase your reverse T3, which means you might have to drop your T4 dose or eliminate it completely for a while to get your reverse T3 under control. Use things like berberine to balance your insulin, because insulin is also going to push up reverse T3 and have a negative effect on the thyroid, just like leptin. So insulin will partner up with leptin and beat the crap out of your thyroid and really increase your reverse T3. Get your insulin under control. Use berberine at the bare bones minimum. Consider adding in microdosing of GLPs. And I've shared this before. We're going to put this in the show notes as well. The company that I've been referring to because of the efficacy and the cost savings is Kiora. So it's joinkiora.com, KIAORA / Dr. Amy, DRAMIE. Use the code Dr. Amy at checkout to save $25 every single month. This is me partnering with Trim Healthy Mama on this. I love they came up with this program. It's an easy breezy way for you to get your hands on GLPs. You can dose them at a microdose and really just reap the benefits. Just reap the benefits. So that information is in the show notes. Get good sleep. Get 8 hours of sleep. Move your body. Do not buy any kind of leptin supplement unless it's just labeled a leptin resistant supplement. It's really berberine, right? I mean, you just need berberine. There are no leptin resistant supplements. You got to use T3, maybe a GLP, definitely berberine. Get rid of the sugars, get rid of the seed oils, get some sleep, manage your stress as much as possible, and move and lift heavy shit. And we will get this leptin resistance under control, and it will not bite you in the ass for the rest of your life. I promise you, there is hope. There are answers, as always. I hope you enjoyed this episode.